Good afternoon and welcome to our Mindfulness Monday session. We're so happy to have been able to continue this series through the spring. These sessions are a collaboration between the Office of Alumni Engagement and the University Center for Student Wellbeing. As we find ourselves living through this challenging time, meditation and mindfulness practices can be powerful ways to help us better manage current stresses and uncertainties. During this session, mindfulness meditations will be taught and practiced together in hopes of providing us with a greater sense of peace and vitality. This session will focus on love for self and others. I'm Audrey Tierney, the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by my colleagues and alumni, Dr. TJ Smith and Amber Leisure of the Center for Student Wellbeing. They are more than happy to put together this program to help us all navigate through these challenging times with the present pandemic. Before I introduce them, I have just a few notes in regards to the technical end of the session. Throughout the program, your microphones will be muted, but you are welcome to submit questions through the chat feature found on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. TJ and Amber will answer questions at the end of the program as time permits. Now, a few words about my colleagues from the Center for Student Wellbeing, in case this is your first time joining us. Dr. TJ Smith is a licensed clinical psychologist and has been engaged with meditation for over a decade, most recently leading meditation groups for Duquesne University students. TJ is currently the training director for Duquesne's counseling services. Amber Leisure has a background in exercise physiology and has taught yoga for 13 years and meditation for 11. Amber currently is the Assistant Director for Recreation Services and has a profound appreciation for the ecumenical approach to the mission of the university. Now I will turn our session over to Amber and TJ.
Hi, everybody. Definitely want to welcome you thank you for coming out and joining us today. Today's topic is going to be on self-compassion. So we thought it very fitting with Valentine's Day yesterday to be talking about themes of love and compassion, and specifically self-compassion too. The reason we're talking about self-compassion is I know a lot of us have difficulties in making that switch where we might be able to be compassionate towards others, loving and caring towards a friend, a family member, a child, but it's tougher to become that way towards oneself, especially when we're not doing well or we feel we might have messed up or something. So this whole program today is really just to give us a sense of what it might mean to be self-compassionate. Again, self-compassionate does not necessarily mean selfish. It just means that we're able to kind of come back to ourselves and provide ourselves a sense of care and comfort. So I'd like to begin this presentation with a quote from Leonard Cohen. You might know him as the original writer of the song Hallelujah. The song Hallelujah is amazing. And this is a lyric from his song Anthem. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And the reason we begin with this quote too is just when we think about our imperfections, our mistakes, the part of ourselves, the shadow that we don't want people to see, we see there's a something less than. However, when we engage ourselves self-compassionately, we really see that those imperfections are okay, that's really where the light gets in, that sort of challenging part of our personality is really filled with light. It's not the shadow or the darkness that we thought it was.
I appreciate that quote, TJ, because you're absolutely right. When we think about compassion, it's so easy to have compassion for others, especially if we know them or love them. But when we look at ourselves, sometimes our mind is just drawn to those imperfections or issues or what have you. And sometimes that makes it really hard with that like self-criticism and everything. So that quote is just so nice to be a reminder to us to be kind to ourselves and to understand that imperfections are a part of everything. There is no perfect offering.
That's it. Thanks.
I'm going to start us off with a brief meditation for the day. And TJ and I have been teaching meditation classes for quite a bit. We're actually coming up on about a year soon.
It's our anniversary soon.
Yeah.
1 year in March, right, I think?
Yeah, I think March might mark our 1 year of teaching this class. And so if you're new to the group, we always start with a mini meditation and something kind of fun, kind of related. that might relate to a different type of meditation or mindfulness practice. And then we also finish the class with a longer meditation that's more germane to the subject at hand for the day. So today, I wanted to open us up to learn about what chakras are and to focus specifically on the fourth chakra, the heart chakra, and meditate on that. So we'll do a brief meditation on that. But first, I'd like to talk about what chakras are. Chakras are believed to be energy centers within our body, and they're aligned with the spine. So whether you believe in energy centers or not, these are all areas of our life that do require some attention. Whether we want to associate them with a color and a space in our body, that's completely up to you. But when we think about these ideas, we want to think about them as how they relate to us and how we can use them to work for us, whether or not you believe in the philosophy behind them. So it's completely okay if you don't. Our chakras are aligned from the base of our spine all the way up to the top of our head. And each one is associated with a color, which follows the rainbow. And each of those is also associated with an idea or a theme that is part of our lives on a daily basis. So we start with the root chakra, which is associated with the color red. It's called Muladhara. And the root chakra is simply responsible for all of our basic needs: food, clothing, shelter. So when we are thinking about the root chakra, we're thinking kind of about being taken care of by the earth, having a home, having clothing, having food, and all of those things that we need for survival. If we don't have those things, we really can't think about the things moving up beyond that. So it's really our most basic, or the base chakra. The next chakra is called the sacral chakra, and it's located right below, about 2 inches below the navel, and it's associated with the color orange. And this is about reproductive system, sexuality, but also creativity and fluidity. And that's the next part of life. Once your basic needs are met, then we move into procreation and we move into creating things and being more creative. Not necessarily in an artistic only theme, but also creating new ideas and new ways of doing things. The next chakra is the solar plexus chakra, and that's located about 3 finger lengths above the navel. And it's associated with the color yellow. And this is our willpower, or even power, how we project our energy into the world, how we receive energy, and how we can withstand temptations, or how we are able to control ourselves. And so it has a lot to do with control, and it's associated with the color yellow. And it's funny because that's also located near our stomach. So sometimes when we think of willpower and self-control, we tend to think about eating, drinking, things like that. And so that is where that resides. The next chakra, which we'll be focusing on for our meditation today, is the heart chakra. And that's located right where our heart is, right at the sternum level. It's associated with the color green. And this heart chakra is all about how we show compassion, we give compassion, but also for ourselves, not just for others. The following chakra is associated with the color light blue, and it's associated right at our throat. And if you're speaking and you place your hand at your throat, you can feel exactly where your heart chakra is. And that chakra is mostly about how we communicate. So how we make our ideas heard in the world, and also how we hear ideas or receive ideas. So it's, all of these chakras are about both projecting out, but then also receiving. So how do we receive it? How do we project it? And it is the chakra most associated with speakers and politics and philosophy. The next chakra is called the third eye chakra, or Ajna, and it's located right in between the eyebrows. And if you were to close your eyes and bring your fingers to that space between your eyebrows, you're going to feel kind of a tingling sensation. And we know that that's from small hairs on our head, but where that you feel that sensation is where the third eye chakra resides. And the third eye chakra is associated with the color dark blue or indigo, whatever you wish to call it. I never hear people say the word indigo, whatever they describe a color. So I'll say navy blue. But that chakra is responsible for our intuition, our instinct, our gut feelings. So the way that we're able to perceive the world without necessarily having all of the facts or going through a flow chart of if this, then this. It's those immediate reactions and how we perceive. So that would be the third eye chakra. And finally, the crown chakra is associated with the color violet, or it's also associated with the color white and gold. So you can pick your favorite, white, gold, or violet, and it's located right at the top of the head. So when we meditate, a lot of times you might hear your instructor directing you to drop your shoulders and feel like a wet tea bag hanging from a string. And string is right at the top of your head. And if we align ourselves from that line, then our spine is in perfect alignment. And the crown chakra is our connection to the divine. So whatever the divine is for you, that would be your connection, whether it's God or the universe or what have you, that is your crown chakra. And so that's kind of the different areas. You can't have one without the other. So it starts from the bottom and we work our way up. Instead of doing a meditation on all chakras, though, today we're going to be focusing on the heart chakra. So that's located in the center of the chest. If you'd like to place your hand there just to get a feel for it, you may. And we're going to practice. So I want to make sure that you are in a comfortable space right now, that you won't need to shift for a little bit. So just relax your body. We're a wet tea bag hanging from a string. That string is located at our crown chakra. Everything else just falls below it. Inhale and exhale. If you'd like to close your eyes, you may. Notice that your heart chakra, right in the center of your chest, as you breathe in and you breathe out, how it expands and contracts. You notice movement. There might be some warmth from those muscles working. As we focus on the heart chakra, we want to focus on, first and foremost, the physical sensation of that area of your body, the muscles moving, inhales and exhales. If your mind wanders, just gently bring it back to the center. And continue your breath. And now as we inhale, you want to visualize also the color green in that space right in your center of your torso. As we inhale, we fill our chest, allowing that space to expand. As we exhale, we compress, continuing to breathe in and breathe out right into that space, right where your lungs are. Take note of all of the sensations. Now as we breathe into this space, repeat the phrase to yourself in your mind, I am love. I have love. I give compassion. I receive compassion. Now let's inhale deeply and fully and hold that breath. As soon as your lungs are completely filled with air, I want you to hold that full breath right in your chest. Feel the tightness right around your heart chakra. If you'd like to continue visualizing the color green, you may. And now fully exhale. Let all of that air out. Fully exhale. Keep exhaling until there's nothing left, and then hold that empty breath. Might be a little bit stressful. Notice tension, the change in feeling. And then inhale again. Breathing normally. And when you're ready, you can focus back on the space around you. You're going to open your eyes. And that is the most basic of the heart chakra meditation. So sometimes practitioners will get fully into the idea of the chakra and really expand upon it, but we'll be doing that a little bit later today. But when you're thinking about your chakras and you're meditating on them or using them as a meditational focal point, sometimes it's just as important to focus on the body part itself and that area in the body where it resides, to really just open it, bring attention to it, and move on.
That's so helpful too. Yeah, just sort of focusing on the heart and imagining that space. Amber, you helped me to sort of come more into heart space than a head space. I was in the head space before, getting stuff done Monday morning, thinking about the week, think. So yeah, you really helped me come back to my heart physically and then emotionally too.
And it's funny because we always refer to compassion and love on the heart. And if you notice, wedding bands or rings are typically, we call this finger the ring finger. The nerves that go from right here to the heart space. So a few of the same nerves, like our nervous system is gigantic, but a few of the nerves that innervate our heart also innervate this finger. So there's a reason for the ring being on this finger, other than the fact that it's a completely useless finger. So it doesn't grow as much, just to on it, not worry about it getting damaged. But there is some fun fact science behind it. But also it's important to notice too that our heart, we tend to focus on the heart as being a space of love and being the muscle of love. But when we look at other cultures, some cultures believe that love resides in the throat. So Papua New Guinea is a good example of cultures where the throat is the focal point where we hold our love. Because if you think about eating and, we need to eat and drink to stay alive. And for that to happen, we need to have a throat. So I would argue that all of our body parts are important. So you could place love there. But yeah, just a kind of fun fact for the day.
I wanted to know too, we got a question from Gary Ambrose too. How does your practicing and teaching relate to those of John Kabat-Zinn? I definitely think the second half has a lot of references to John Kabat-Zinn, as well as I think the first half can have as well. But I don't know if we wanted to sort of answer that now or answer that after we get into the self-compassion a little bit. What you think, Amber?
Yeah, we can address it right now.
Yeah.
I think. So I'll start if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it.
So John Kabat-Zinn's definition, we tend to start with John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness before a lot of classes. But since we've been going through this for almost a year now, we've kind of omitted that definition, but sometimes we draw it back. But it's all about being present and intentionally, and it's about focusing on a presence. And when we do any type of meditational practice, whether it's on chakras or whether we're focusing on an idea like love, or whether we're focusing on a leaf and a flower, we are utilizing John Kabat-Zinn's philosophy of mindfulness-based stress reduction to clear our mind of other things and focus on that one aspect. So when we focused on, if I'm understanding your question correctly, like how does the practice of meditating on the chakras relate?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
John Kabat-Zinn, we use that same presence, intentionality, non-judgmentally in that practice, because we're being mindful of that space, and we're being mindful of our time right here, right now, to practice that. But TJ, would you like to expand on that a little more?
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can remember the John Kabat-Zinn definition. So this is my moment of, you can call on me, and there might be one element I'm forgetting. It's a mindfulness is awareness in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally, and it's concentration. There we go. Mindfulness is concentration on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Those are the four we always come back to. So in a way, I'm thinking about what we're transferring in here too, especially the self-compassion, really keying in on that fourth element, the non-judgmentally. So I think the mindfulness, the basis is that on purpose. That means we're setting an intention. It's a matter of concentration, focus on something, and it's in the present moment. So I think that a lot of that is what you will do when we're dealing with a mindfulness exercise. But that fourth element, that non-judgmentally, that's the trickiest one, to tell you the truth. It's sort of a matter of being non-judgmental about your experience. So even when we're talking about self-compassion, it's almost a little bit, it contains an element of non-judgmental, but it goes a little further. It's not just we're going to be non-judgmental neutral. We're actually going to approach that experience with a bit of compassion, a bit of acceptance too. Okay.
Mindfulness, the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally.
All right.
I had to Google it. I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
I wanted to make sure we got the words exactly
right.
John,
I think I might have got it. If I had to grade me, I'd give me a B+ on that, maybe.
No, you did a great job. But it brought me immediately back to, I was in 4-H, but like the non-animal 4-H, like the one where we learned how to do crafts. And we always had to memorize the 4-H pledge. And so I went into that like headspace of like trying to like, wait, let me get my memorizations. Because I was almost in like that, I pledged my hands to.
I just looked at that this morning. We're giving our 9 p.m. presentation. So we're giving the late nighter to the Wellbeing Club tonight. We just had that, included that definition.
So great question. And thank you for bringing it all together between the mindfulness and our current practice today. And I question on just a quote from the Wisdom of No Escape by Pema Chodron. Meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we are already. And I think that this really comes down to the same Kabat-Zinn quote of befriending who we are already, or non-judgmentally looking at ourselves in this moment. And while we may eventually become something that we perceive to be better, in this moment, we're non-judgmentally accepting who we are, and we're befriending that.
This sort of quote too, it speaks to the wisdom of self-acceptance. Because I think a lot of times, I know myself, I can get on the self-improvement bandwagon. It's what, month or so after the new year, so I think we still might have some of that self-improvement juice going on, and that's good. I think there's this desire for change that we have. So on the one hand, we want to note that part, but then there's this other part that you can sort of say, yes, I'd like to change and develop, and I accept myself where I'm at right now. Because I think so often it's that tension between, well, if I accept myself, I'm not going to change. And if I try to get better, well, then I'm not accepting myself. So it's a lot of the times the minds create those dualities. So right here, we're both accepting ourselves and desiring change.
I think as a personal trainer, and I'm sure you as a counselor also, we see this all the time, like people who they have a goal in mind and they want to reach that goal. And so as a yoga instructor, become more flexible so I can do this pose, or as a personal trainer, eat better, lose some weight, get stronger, be able to do a pull-up. And those are all fantastic goals. It's so fantastic to have a goal and to work towards it. But if we can't befriend ourselves in the here and now, or accept ourselves as we are, it's so much harder to move forward from that space, So it does take a certain level of acceptance and self-compassion to say, okay, this is where I want to be. I'm dissatisfied with some of these aspects. and I want to move into something better or something different. But it really comes down to first accepting this is where I am now, and that's okay.
Yes. And all of those words too, we use when talking about this sort of quadrant or this space of non-judgmentalness, neutrality, acceptance, and compassion. And I think all those are different, but then I think we're going to focus on the self-compassion a bit today. Although I think they're all interrelated and needed to sort of experience each other. All right, to talk about self-compassion a little bit more, we're going to use Kristen Neff. So if you want to talk about self-compassion in the field of psychology, she's done a ton of research. So you type her name in. I think her website is www.self-compassion-.com. I think I put too many dashes in that. But I think it'll bring you right to her site. So she breaks it down into 3 elements. So I'm going to get into these 3 elements. And in doing that, we'll do a meditation afterwards, a little self-compassion break. So we'll try to understand it first, and then we'll go on to get an experience of what it might be like. And to back up a second to us talking about that kind of the relationship between, on the one hand, acceptance and change. I wanted to also bring this back about mindfulness too. This is definitely a meditation, a mindfulness presentation. But I think a big part of mindfulness is the heartfulness of the mindfulness. So you could even think about that too when we're thinking mind and heart. I might be using that separately, but I think they're 2 sides of the same coin. So I think in doing this heartfulness presentation, it really brings us back to the mindfulness. So this is more what we mean about the heartfulness. So if you experience some sort of suffering, and you're looking for the experience of self-compassion, the first thing you do is use that mindfulness. So we're not necessarily going to get rid of the mindfulness for heartfulness. We're going to begin with the mindfulness. So this is what we've been talking about for a year now too, would be that recognition. 1, that recognition that you were suffering. And 2, the recognition that maybe there's a part of you that's acting self-critically in those moments. And that's the big thing. There's always the first arrow, which is the pain, as the Buddhists say, the first arrow, and the second arrow, which is our reaction to the pain, the suffering, the stress. So I think the place where mindfulness begins isn't in a room with a cushion that's quiet. The place where mindfulness begins is out there in the world when we're experiencing something. And the easiest way to do that is noticing when we're not doing well. When we have stress, God bless you, Amber. There you go. When we're in stress, when we're having difficulty, sadness, anxiety, the multitudes of that. It could be something emotional, it could be something physical. It just is that mindful stop that, hey, I'm experiencing that right now. And then also recognizing if there is that part of you that might be self-critical, like, oh, I don't have time to be anxious, or, oh, here I go again, I'm being sad, or, oh, here it goes again, my leg's hurting. To notice both of those. And then that second step after mindfulness is the reminding yourself of the common humanity. So this is more of a mindfulness space too, more of a head space, bringing together that there's this reminder, and this goes above mindfulness, I think, and this is where Kristen Neff, as a psychologist, she's talking about really reminding yourself that we all go through this. So if you think of stress, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, shame, anger, jealousy, greed, all these emotions that the mind classifies as negative, that this isn't something that's individual to you. You're not alone. And that's the biggest thing to remember, I think, with an individualistic culture, with the way we're sort of, raised, it feels like we're all alone. And gosh, we feel even more alone now too, that we're sort of social distancing and behind a computer for a lot of the day. So the biggest thing to remember is, hey, anxious, sad, lonely, this isn't something I'm experiencing. This is something that humanity experiences, and we share this. Of course, we share the joys, the excitement, the love, the compassion as well. But then we also share in those things that the mind might deem negative. So that first step is just being mindful of the suffering. Second step is just remembering. So too I suffer, others suffer as well. And then the third step is the bringing self-compassion to your experience of suffering and to your experience of yourself. And that's it. That's more that heartful space, bringing a sense of kindness. So looking at that more, when I say kindness, self-compassion, I just wanted to expound upon that a bit more. And this comes a little bit from Tara Brach. Also a psychologist who's a meditation teacher. You can find her on the internet as well. Really self-compassion. There's a space that we have that really, when we see ourselves suffering, arises organically to that space. Like I saw I got a tweet about someone suffering yesterday. I must have just clicked on, and it was just, I want to get into it. I might end up, hitting my heart space too much there. But I just looked at it. I was like, oh my gosh, this poor lady, how bad she might be suffering. So it came in quite a natural place after I received this tweet. So just as there's a sort of natural compassion for this other person, I think we can sort of cultivate that for ourselves. That space is there. So when we see ourselves suffering, it just is kind of a response to that. Some nice little ways to engage that part is you could ask that part what needs attention, what wants attention. So when you're suffering, you'd even ask, hey, I see you're anxious, I see you're sad, I see you're in pain, I see you're lonely. What needs attention, and what wants my attention? And then from that asking, sometimes that part can actually, in a way, you get a sense of what it needs. And a lot of times it's just something like kindness, reassurance, acceptance, forgiveness, strength. Exactly whatever that part needs the most is what you can offer. And in a general way, that's love. So depending, it might just offer some kindness. It's okay. A reassurance would be it's okay. Acceptance is you're okay. Forgiveness, you're going to be all right. Strength, you can get through this. Whatever words resonate the most to really fill that part with love that you're offering yourself. And then you also may want to, just as we were visiting earlier, put a hand on your heart. This hand on your heart could be the symbolic the concrete manifestation of that symbolic compassion we're offering ourselves in that moment.
And I think you really touched on a very important aspect of self-compassion in this slide, TJ, because you implore us to ask the part that's suffering what it needs or what it wants. And that implies you're asking the question why or what
Yes.
of yourself, because sometimes I feel like, at least on a personal level, I might be low-key suffering in some way. It's like, whatever, I still have to get to work. I still have to do this. I still have to do this. Somebody asked me how I'm doing, like, fine, like, that sort of thing. And when we do that outwardly, sometimes we forget to inwardly check in, and say like, wait, am I okay? Like, is this upsetting? Or, and there's no rule for what counts as suffering too, because I think a lot of times we might look at the problems of the world because we have social media and we have the news at our fingertips, and we might say, well, Myanmar, those people are in a really rough space right now. What am I complaining here about a little bit of snow on my windshield? Or, you know what I mean? And those things are still suffering, like on a subjective level. If you're suffering, and asking yourself is the first step to understand if you are or you aren't.
Yes, and I always have to remind myself, that'd be more the reminding and the remembering that, hey, I can't help another person unless I'm helping myself as well. It's the old fill in the well. If my well isn't full enough, then I can offer to others. So I sort of kind of circumvent that sometimes when my focus goes on helping another, clients, family. I have to remember, okay, wait, also I need to make sure I'm doing okay to help them as well.
I never heard the fill in the well.
Yeah,
But it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's basically that. Yeah, you can't sit.
Pre-flight equivalent to put on your own mask before you put on the mask.
Yes, exactly, that's it. All right, so we'll do a self-compassion break here. It'll be more of a briefer meditation, but just to pull together those three elements. All right, so I'd like you to close your eyes if you're able. Get in a comfortable position. And for a second, just think about a situation in your life right now that is difficult, that is causing stress and suffering. Make sure this is a difficult situation, but not one that's traumatic, not one that's going to overwhelm you. There's other times that you could sort of bring that to mind, but bring one to mind that just might be a bit difficult, that needs some of your compassion in this moment. For the next couple seconds, just call the situation to mind. Imagine if you can even see that situation in your mind's eye. that task involved, the people involved. See if you can actually feel the stress, the suffering, and all the emotional discomfort involved in your body. Letting that part come right into your mind's eye, both in terms of seeing the situation and really in an embodied way, feeling how it makes you feel. And when it's in your mind's eye, think to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Bring some mindfulness to this suffering. This mindfulness might be naming what it is. I'm thinking, I'm worrying, I'm stressed out. It could be being aware of where it's in your body, your shoulders, your jaw, your heart, your stomach. And then really just validating it. You may say, this hurts. Ouch. This is stress. This is suffering. Whatever way that brings mindfulness to that experience, both in heart and in your body. Saying whatever else you might need to say to help you recognize that suffering. Next, we remember that suffering is a part of life. This isn't to say that we just sort of say, we all suffer, get over it. Quite the opposite is saying, hey, we all suffer. We suffer together. There's a common humanity to this suffering, be it stress, anxiety, physical pain, sadness, loneliness, grief. And this common humanity is a recognition that this is how it feels to be in this situation and feel like this. If others were in your situation, they'd be feeling a similar way. So remind yourself, other people feel this way. I'm not alone. We all struggle in our lives. And now if you feel comfortable, put a hand over your heart. And put both hands over your heart if you want. And feel the warmth of your hands and the gentle touch of your hands on your chest. You can feel free to adopt whatever soothing touch you discovered feels right for you. And in this last place, we begin to offer ourselves what we need. You may want to ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? To this part that's stressed, this part that's suffering, what do I need? What's calling for my attention? And then you can think about, even more than think about, really intuit, if there's a phrase that that part wants to hear that you can offer in this particular self situation from a place of compassion. It's a way of giving you what you need. You may say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I give myself the compassion that I need. May I learn to accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May May I be strong. May I be patient. Now for the next few seconds, I want you to offer yourself that quality of experience that part that suffering needs. And then when you feel ready, when you feel that, okay, this inner work is done, you can feel free to open up your eyes and take in more of the environment. We'll give you a few seconds to sort of finish up this work and then open your eyes.
Thank you, TJ. I think that's a great reminder to us to understand the humanity and the universality of suffering and compassion as well. So I'd like to move on to some tips, things that we can do today or in our upcoming future to practice self-compassion. Because like TJ said, if you can't take care of your own, or if your well's not full, you can't fill the well of others. So, we need to make sure that we are helping ourselves and practicing self-compassion. So if you're having trouble with it, one way to do this would be to start with imagining a loving being or spiritual figure, family member, even a pet, and them offering compassion to you. And, we may have a good friend or a good family member who, no matter what we may have done, they're going to offer us that type of compassion that we're seeking when we have some problems. If that doesn't work out for you, you could also try picturing how you may respond to a friend who's suffering, thinking about what you might say to them if they came to you with suffering and how you'd react to that. And offer that to yourselves, because oftentimes, we might be a lot kinder to a friend than we might be to ourselves. And so I have to ask myself sometimes, would I say this to a friend? If a friend came up to me and complained, I'm not gonna lie, I gained 10 pounds over the pandemic, wasn't exercising as much, and cooking a lot more. I made all of the breads. I learned how to cook. So, I was being really hard on myself. But if one of my friends came up to me and said, oh, I gained 10 pounds, I wouldn't tell them like, well, you should know better. What were you doing? That sort of thing. I would be like, hey, it's okay. You were living your life. It's a pandemic. And now you know how to cook. So, that always works for me. So sometimes it's nice to just think about, if you are suffering in some way, if you had a close friend come to you with the same thing, how would you react to them, or what would you say to them? Because oftentimes that dialogue is a lot healthier for yourself than how sometimes we speak with ourselves.
I was just talking to someone about something similar today, one of my clients too, that personal growth, really the movement is that movement from being able to respond to another with that sort of care that you're talking about, that spontaneously you respond to a friend like that isn't like contrived, that isn't you're trying to get one up, that place that can offer that care then can sort of turn back onto itself and offer that care, where you can begin to care for yourself like that. And I think that's the biggest challenge for everybody. That's a part of that's a common humanity experience there. But once we sort of cultivate a practice and gain bigger access to that self that can provide that compassion, and that's really when a lot of the growth occurs.
Yeah, no, it really is. And there are other tips that we can include in our day too to help to perpetuate that. If it's challenging to live self-compassionately, maybe you start small with those little steps, things that I did to help my day. So maybe I made my bed or I completed a certain task that was on my task list. And oftentimes that can be motivating to keep going, you know. I had a general rule over, especially the beginning of the shutdown where I wasn't used to being home all day. Just do 3 good things every day. And sometimes it was a stretch, like I showered, you know, or something along those lines. But you know, name those 3 good things because those are things that you've done for yourself. And we have another colleague named Danny who sometimes presents with us, and she made a great point where she had said, you know, be compassionate to your future self. So let your present self give your future self a compassionate gift. And that might be making the bed or putting gas in the car the night before so that you're not rushing the next morning, or meal prepping, or, you know, any of those things. That could be a small gift to the self. And then once you get to that point, you could move to validating like internal facets that you find positive. So, you know, maybe you read a lot or you are committed to learning new things every day or every month, or maybe you're doing Duolingo and learning a new language. You know, celebrate those things about yourself that drive to learn more, or maybe it's your sense of humor or your taste in film, you know, any of those things. So you're looking for those things to really validate and look at. Then finally, you want to try to offer kindness to those internal facets that are more challenging. So, you know, it's a little easier to say, hey, I have great taste in movies. It might be a little harder for me to point out those things that I might perceive as negative, like feeling anxious, angry, or sad, or jealous, or, you know, any of those things.
Yes. Well, and we got a question from the crowd too, and I want to make sure I found this too. So if you ever see me looking at my phone, I'm not checking out the local sports scene to make sure my bets have come in. I'm doing research on the fly. So that's why I was looking at the phone. So, Chris asked, can you recommend any free or low-cost meditations that build from one day to another, such as a 7-day series, a month-long session, etc.? And I can recommend one. I have no financial investment in this product, so for better or worse. But the one that I've checked out it's called Mindfulness Daily, and that's by Tara Brach. That's Brach, and Jack Cornfield. And I'll put that in I'll put that in the I can include that as well in the follow-up. Jack Cornfield is Kornfield. And the Mindfulness Daily can be got through either their sites, especially Tara Brach's site, but you can also go to soundstrue.com. And that's another place that you can purchase it. It is a wonderful series that it gives you about a 5 to 10 minute meditation on a different topic, and it goes sequentially. So you could do this in a month long, starting from day 1 to day 30, where you can incorporate a 5 to 10 minutes of mindfulness a day, and it'll talk about different subjects. So I think that's one that comes to mind. It's something that's a nice foundation, and Jack Cornfield and Tara Brach are one of the best in the field. It's coming at it from more of a place of a psychological, but also Buddhist perspective too. But it's really great.
And I think there are a lot of good podcasts out there as well. If you like, I really like Jack Cornfield, and he does some nice podcasts. I can't think of any of the titles. I know Tara Brach does one called On Being, I believe.
Yeah, yep.
Tara's, is that hers? Or is she just a guest on it sometimes? But it's called On Being, ON space BEING. And so they give some basic talks on mindfulness and meditation and do some practices. So that would be a good one to listen to too. And you can definitely look up back episodes.
Yeah, something about Tara Brach too. She has a Dharma talks on Wednesdays, I think. You can get them through her site, and they backlog for years and years. But Tara, something about her voice too. If we're talking about self-compassion, if I could have Tara Brooks in my head, providing self-compassion, so that I'd be in a happier place. She has a really nice and soothing voice and a really encouraging voice too. So I think her and Jack Hornfield will be the places to begin.
Yeah, that's a really good beginning place. And they're also very balanced between, Western and Eastern thought.
Yes, that's it.
They don't get too far out there in one area or another. I know I'm a big fan of Ram Dass. So he has one called Be Here Now podcast. But, I think he gets into the more bhakti yoga practice. And so if you're looking for something a little bit more middle of the road, I think Tara Brach is a really good place to start. And Jack Hornfield.
Yeah, and feel free to too, if anyone had a particular question, we could follow that up in an email. Both of our email addresses come out with the messages too. And I wanted to think about too, we're already 10 to the hour. So I thought that'd be a good chance to entertain any other questions we might have. The loving kindness meditation we had here was kind of a extension of the self-compassion break. So rather than rush a loving kindness meditation, which is not a good idea, we have it there just in case. I think it's better to sort of settle into seeing if there's any more questions, and also if there's not, given some space for this particular quote that I think is pretty poignant.
Yeah, I think we had some great questions today. I appreciate the interaction.
Yes.
And all of the good questions. And I think we could even put together a list of podcasts, apps, or websites to visit too that have some good resources.
Yeah, definitely.
Some point to be sent out at a later date.
I'm not seeing any other questions currently coming in.
Good.
Was there anything else you guys wanted to cover with the quote or anything before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read the quote too, just to give a sense of. I like to. My wife's a teacher, so I never get to read out loud, but she does all the time. So I thought I would give it a try. Don't meditate to fix yourself, to improve yourself, to redeem yourself. Rather, do it as an act of love, of deep, warm friendship to yourself. In this way, there is no longer any need for subtle aggression of self-improvement or for the endless guilt of not doing enough. It offers the possibility of an end to the ceaseless round of trying so hard that wraps so many people's lives in a knot. Instead, there is now meditation as an act of love. How endlessly delightful and encouraging. And I think that's a great quote to end on here. And really, self-compassion as a journey of growth. And we did the self-compassion. I think self and other compassion are linked up together too. So compassion, self and other, and humanity as well. It's an act of growth, but I think it takes time. We're a work in progress. I like the tips that Amber gave too. So, hey, this isn't a thing where you can just turn on that self-compassion switch. If I did, I'd teach it to you. It's something that's accessing that self-compassion part of yourself, while also starting small. So if you get discouraged, just sort of draw on what you learned today, but it does take a little bit of time.
Self-compassion is really a radical act. Like I work in fitness. I work in the fitness industry, and it's all about pointing out perceived flaws or helping you to perceive your flaws so that you can buy this product to reduce that flaw, or so that you can buy these pants to make it look like you don't have that flaw. Like all of these, it sets us up to be constantly in the act of seeking out flaws and self-criticism. So self-compassion is truly a radical act of saying, no, I accept these things. And if I decide that I want to change them, I'm first accepting myself where I am right now and giving that compassion and allowance to be, just as we allow ourselves to be in the process of making positive change.
And I'd like to thank everyone too. Yes, I can get behind that. And thank everyone for the helpful comments. I appreciate the appreciation. Yeah, feels good.
Well, Thanks, Amber and TJ, for a wonderful session today. I know these sessions have helped me so much through all of this, and I hope they've done the same for you. And thank you all again for attending today's Mindfulness Monday. We'll be continuing this series through the spring, so be sure to watch for that follow-up email. We'll include the link to register for our next sessions on March 15th on resilience and April 12th on renewal. And we'll also include some links to some of the resources that Amber and TJ brought up for you as well as all of our other upcoming virtual events. I hope you'll consider joining us for one of those. And if you have any questions for TJ or Amber that you didn't ask today, if there's anything specific you'd like to cover in the future, their email addresses will also be included in the email. So have a great day, everyone. Stay safe out there, especially with all the snow here. And as always, go Dukes.